In this video you will see how to create a dotted pattern on a solid stamp. And I will show you how to color a brown dog using only red and green inks. But first I will make a fun pattern for some festive banners. Do not miss any of my card making tips. Hello, it's CisVolk. Today I will share some inspiring tips for card making or journaling with the Odey Party Collection by CarlaCreates. Keep watching if you'd like to see me color and also if you do not yet have any of the CarlaCreates products. I will start by using a stencil on colored cardstock. I have 2 green sheets of paper from the Christmas collection. Normally you might ink blend on white paper or use paste to create some texture. Or maybe use white ink, like I did on the red paper in a previous video. But this time I will use a white gel pen and simply trace the circles from this random round stencil by CarlaCreates. Actually, this is quite a relaxing activity, just tracing circles and clearing your mind. For this I'm using the Sakura Jelly Roll pen number 10. Look how crisp and nice the circles are. And what a beautiful pattern you get! Now this is perfect as a background, but if you stamp on top of it, you will have the perfect paper for the banner stamp. The circle pattern is ideal for creating a fun and festive look this way. It is also a great pattern for the hat or the gift stamp. I stamp on top of the circles with black VersaFine ink. I stamp both banners on the light green and on the dark green paper. Then I trim them all. I try to make an even selection of different banners, so that the garland will look nice and varied when I stick them alternately later on. I used the label die and acetate plastic to cut a clear plastic label. Just like I did for the shaker label with the cat, I will now make a shaker label with Odey the dog. I already cut a label background from white paper. And I also made one that I ink blended with Distress Oxide ink. Next I cut out the frame and stamped the brown text only on the inner frame. I did not film that part, I will save it for another time. You can use any color paper you like or want to stamp on. I used lumberjack plate and tea dye for the ink, and for the stamping I used ground espresso Distress Oxide ink. The text stamps are stamped scattered across the background, and you can order them in Dutch or in English. I will show you a fun way to use the number stamp in a moment. You do not want to miss that. Here you can see that I only stamped on the inside part of the label. I first die cut the inside piece and then I stamped the text on it. This way the frame stayed plain and only the middle part has the stamped text. Now let us attach the shaker window, which was cut out of acetate, also called a mica sheet, using double-sided tape on the back of the label frame. I remove only half of the tape backings first to make it easier to place. I trim off some edges that stick out, which can happen when paper is slightly warped. Now I glue the inside part onto the white paper using VaessenCreative Glue Easy. It is a simple but very effective glue. You can still move the paper slightly when positioning it, and it dries almost invisible while holding very firmly once dry. Because I want the panel to be centered, I use the window to check if it is placed right in the middle. In hindsight I would have done this before closing the window with acetate, but luckily this frame is mirrored on both sides, so I can use it upside down to center it perfectly. For a shaker card or a shaker tag, you need an open space inside the label. To create a raised edge, I use double-sided foam tape along the borders of the label. Stick the tape as close to the edge as possible and make sure there are no gaps where the shaker pieces could fall through. When all edges are in place and pressed down firmly, I take an anti-static pouch and go over the acetate and along the inner foam edges. This removes static and makes sure the inner sides of the tape are no longer sticky. Of course, the top side of the tape must stay sticky, so I leave the protective backing on for now. I wipe the acetate clean with a dry cloth, because we want it to stick properly later. Now we can remove all the tape backings. Then we can add sequins or any shaker material you like. From my experience, it is best to remove the backings first before adding the sequins. You can do it the other way around, but in both cases you must be careful that the sequins do not stick to the tape. If you add the confetti after removing the tape, you will have to aim carefully. If you add the confetti before removing the tape, you must pull the tape very gently, or the confetti might jump into the air and fall onto the tape. Carefully remove any sequins that do stick, otherwise the acetate will not seal completely and the sequins may fall out later. Start attaching it on one side, press along all edges gently and make sure everything is well attached before you lift or shake it. If you shake it well afterward, any visible powder behind the window will disappear. You can add a ribbon through the opening. I fold the ribbon in half and pull the loop through the hole of the tag, then pull the two loose ends through the loop. The same ribbon is also perfect for making the festive banner. It is very handy that you can pull the ribbon without it unrolling from the spool. On the back of the ribbon, I apply double-sided tape. This tape is 3 mm wide, so it fits perfectly. I stick about 20 cm of tape on the back, but I think you might need around 25 cm in total. Also on the back of the banners we stick double-sided tape. We stick it to the top of the banner on the back side. You can make a row of banners next to each other and stick them all close to one another. When they are all stuck, you can cut them loose. The backing is still on and now you have separate banner stickers that you can position on the red ribbon when you want to. Let us do a fun technique. Something completely out of the box. Let us stamp using the bold numbers by CarlaCreates. Since they are bold, we can use the white stamp area to create a pattern on it. For the pattern, you will need a stencil with small openings, like the random round stencil by CarlaCreates. Place the stencil on top of the stamp, just in a way that the circles cover the bold number. Not too much and not too few visible. The stencil will stick to the stamp. It is a very good quality stamp. Now I add Versamark ink. The ink now only goes on the stamp in the areas where the openings of the stencil are. When we remove the stencil you will not see much, because this is transparent ink. But when we stamp it on the colored paper, you can see where the ink is. On top of that, I sprinkle red glitter embossing powder from Nellie's Choice. But of course you can use any embossing powder you like. The powder only sticks to the areas where the ink is on the paper. I do the same on a lighter green paper with the number 0. So I take the stamp on my clear block and I place the stencil with the circles on top. Then I apply Versamark ink. You can do this with a foam tool or a brush, or directly with the ink pad like I now do. The way of applying the ink is different in some cases, but for this technique it makes no difference. I showed that already in previous videos. Watch those if you want more tips for working with Versamark ink. But also watch my basic shapes video. That one gives you a lot of tips for working with solid stamps. After removing the stencil you can stamp immediately. When stamping, the ink transfers to the paper and where the stencil was, there is no ink on the stamp, so you can still see the stencil pattern. The remaining embossing powder goes back into the jar, and then we can heat set the powder with the heat tool. As long as the powder is not heated, you can still wipe it off the paper. And unfortunately, without heating, the powder will not stay on forever. It is not loose glitter. It is glitter mixed with embossing powder, and once it melts, it sticks firmly to the paper. Look how fun this is! To make it clearer that this is a 3 and a 0, we will have to stamp once more on the same spot. Again, I do that with Versamark ink. This ink gives a watermark effect. You can see the paper color become slightly darker. This helps when cutting out the numbers. Now we can clearly see where to cut. For the 0, I make a small hole in the center of the number with my scissors. And then I cut along the edges. Do you see that I keep my scissors underneath the paper so I can clearly see where I am cutting? Cut slowly, that gives the best result. If you find cutting difficult, or if you do not like it, you can also stamp on a rectangular or circular piece of paper and leave it like that. You can also stamp in another color ink to make the numbers stand out more clearly. Now I will color the little dog. I will not use brown, but green and red inks. Exactly the same colors that I used for my label. I will color with my new Tombow water brushes. They are perfect for beginners and advanced users. The color of the cap shows the brush size. I start with the green brush with the smallest tip. I have already filled it with water. Each time I pick up only a small amount of ink on my brush. Between coloring, I rinse the brush in a jar of water and dry it on a piece of paper towel. I color as dry as possible. At first it looks a bit odd that I color the dog with only green and red ink. The label is red and the banners will be green. So if I color the dog with the same colors, he will match perfectly with the rest of the project. And he will still turn out brown. You will see. After coloring, I will assemble this fun shaker label. Enjoy watching! What did you think about coloring with only 2 colors of ink? I'm surprised by the beautiful effect. Distress ink is one of my favorite mediums. Let us now stick Odey to the label and have him hold the number 30 in his paws. I stick Odey flat with just glue. And the numbers I stick a little raised with 2 mm foam blocks. The paws can be placed slightly higher with 3 mm foam blocks, or just use 2 on top of each other if you only have the 2 mm ones. To stick the banners, I just removed the backing of the double-sided tape that I stuck on the ribbon. I stick the ribbon on the label at an angle from side to side. I take notice to keep a bit of distance, to be able to stick 2 or 3 banners below each other. Place one banner loosely to estimate the distance more easily. Once the ribbon is in place, I place all the green banners on top of the ribbon. When all the banners are in the place where I want them, I remove the protective backing one by one and stick them on top of the red ribbon. I alternate dark green and light green and also change the shapes. I have some banners left and I use them to add an extra garland on the label. The banners peek out on the sides, which actually looks better, so you get the idea that the banner continues beside the label. The pieces that stick out can be cut off. I really like this festive shaker. It is such fun to send in the mail or to add to a gift for a 30th birthday. Let me know in the comments if you are going to try coloring with just red and green, or if you want to try the combination of a stencil on top of a solid stamp. Or maybe you will be making a shaker label. I love to see what you made, and I love sharing your creations in my Instagram and Facebook stories. You can also check my Facebook, Pinterest and Instagram accounts for inspiration. Information about the products I used can be found in the description below the video. Do you have any questions? Do not hesitate to ask. I'm happy to help you out. Remind me to show you next time how to make the background of the label and how to stamp all these random texts in a way that looks really nice. That is for another time. Enjoy card making and enjoy watching more YouTube videos. You can check the ones that can be found in the last screen at the end. I will see you next time. Bye bye!